All right, let me see here. How do I do this? Oh, there we are. Okay, cool. Where's my layout? Right. Okay, cool. Chris Postgame, welcome everyone. Hello, welcome to the Pride of Detroit Postgame Show. We haven't done one of these in a while, have we? I'm usually not around to do a lot of these, but we've got a lot to break down on this one. We will have full POD cast tomorrow on Monday with myself, Jeremy Reisman, and Ryan Matthews. Ryan's busy. I'll see if he's available, if he wants to jump on, but we're probably going to get the main show off. We do these we used to do these a lot when I was home, about like a couple years ago, where we could do this immediately after the game. But especially when we have, a lot of our staff is at these games covering the actual game in the press conferences and everything. But there is, we haven't done these in a while, and I'm going to apologize right now. I'm kind of really tired. I got woken up multiple times last night, and my head is all kind of fluff right now, and I've kind of hit the theoretical limits of my caffeine intake. And some of you are already starting to annoy me a little bit. So we are going to start this post game in earnest once I get the recorder up and running here. Let me just kick this down a bit. Anyway. Welcome to the post-game show for Pride of Detroit POD-cast. We have the full POD-cast coming on Monday live, and we will have that up for you on podcast feeds either Monday night or Tuesday mornings. So this will tide you over in the interim. Lions suffer their second loss of the season to the Buffalo Bills, 48-42, the highest scoring game of, I'm pretty sure, this entire Lions season, 90 points total combined. It is, let me just put a couple things in perspective. This was only the fifth loss the Lions have suffered at home since 2022. Since week 12 of 2022. The fifth home loss dating back to week 12 of 2022. This is their first loss in just over 90 days. That's how long the Detroit Lions have been up and winning. So let me just start by saying that, and I'm really not trying to be hyper defensive, and I do not want to come off as the hyper defensive fan, but I also understand how far our conversation goes the complete opposite way as soon as there's a loss. If you are saying that this is somehow a terrible loss, downgrades the Lions in some catastrophic ways, you're a moron. And I'm not going to hear anything to the otherwise argument. I just think you're not smart, you're not intelligent, and I don't want to deal with you. And if that sounds mad, sorry. Yeah, it might be. I'm not mad, but I just think that a second loss on the year does not denigrate literally everything the Lions have been doing in the past bit of time. What happened in this game was a lot of problems catching up to the Detroit Lions. Some of those problems we will talk about. If you are a Lions fan and thinking about selling your stock on Aaron Glenn or on Dan Campbell, I would like to let you know that the rest of the NFL world thinks you are spoiled rotten. I hate to turn this on Lions fans to start, but I do want a bit of a heat check here. This is only the fifth time since week 12 of 2022 the Lions have lost at home, and their first loss in over 90 days. Let's set that as a ground rule to start before we start breaking into how the Lions lost this game to a team that is playing some of its best football and year to year right now in the Buffalo Bills, and Josh Allen absolutely is gunning for an MVP trophy on top of everything. And I think ultimately what came down to it is that the Lions finally met up with someone who stared them in the mirror, who the Lions stared at the mirror, and the mirror stared back. The Buffalo Bills resemble the Detroit Lions in a lot of ways, except they've got a better quarterback, and they are more healthy and had the better matchup of it. I know the Bills came into this without their starting safeties and without their starting cornerback. They really didn't need to because they have been good in the past few games about making tackles for losses to stop run games. That sounds familiar, right? And in this game, they did get some pressure and sacked Jared Goff a few times and did not let anything long developing play out for the Detroit Lions to really challenge that secondary. For the Lions on the other side of the ball, being down Trevor Nowaski on top of every other linebacker out there meant you were vulnerable over the middle. It meant you were vulnerable on second level to stuff that Cook could do in the run game. And losing Aleem McNeil in the middle of this game was not helpful either. He is a big heart and soul of that defensive line. Ultimately, the Lions have been able to get by with the pieces, parts, and spare and just junk they find on the street, cobbled together to make a defense. You weren't going to probably do that against the Buffalo Bills, and the game showed for it. Nevertheless, the Detroit Lions battled back in this game, and if it wasn't for the other thing that rebounded and finally caught the Detroit Lions, which was mistakes and penalties, of which they've been lucky in the last few weeks, their luck did not show up for this game. That luck evaporated. They had some bad holding. They had I believe, a bad holding call go against them. They were not able to sustain some drives that they probably should have, and they lost the turnover differential. Nail all those things together, what do you get? A pretty bad gumbo, especially when you're playing probably the best team in the American Football Conference in the Buffalo Bills. I have no problem saying any of that right now. At a plus 135 point differential, the Buffalo Bills are the best team in the AFC. People said this might look like a Super Bowl preview. Well, guess what? That's what a Super Bowl playing team in the Buffalo Bills looks like. When they can do stuff like that, when they can play like that with Josh Allen. And there's nothing really, when you have the defense level that the Detroit Lions can do to stop someone like Josh Allen every drive. You can't stop how he can run a lot of this ball. Some of those throws he was making in this game, there's no answer for. The only answer you really had was to keep answering on offense. And unfortunately, to start the game, the Lions got put into a very quick 14-point hole. They got put into a very quick 14-point hole, and they played behind. And I was saying this week, the last thing you want to see is a Jared Goff stat line that looks like the Tampa Bay game. Jared Goff threw 59 times in this game. The Buffalo Bills did something that the Detroit Lions like to do to other teams. They made the Detroit Lions one-dimensional. You have 48 rushing yards on the day. Your leader is Jahmyr Gibbs with 31. You had 8 carries for Jahmyr Gibbs. You had 5 for David Montgomery. Jahmyr Gibbs, obviously, being able to get a lot more in the receiving game out there. But either way, David Montgomery, your bowling ball was not really working for you right now, and they attacked you at the line of scrimmage and won repeatedly. I'd have to see how many tackles for loss they really got. They had 4 tackles for loss in this game, and they had 3 sacks on 10 quarterback hits. This was a team staring itself in the mirror and seeing another team that is just did a lot of things right in this game. And to be honest, they did it with some weird jank too, because I do not believe their stat line looks weird too. Ty Johnson's your receiving leader for the Buffalo Bills. And there are some decisions that should be critiqued when it comes to the Detroit Lions, but I don't lay a lot of this at the feet of someone like Aaron Glenn. I can't. Aaron Glenn's doing the best with everything he's got right there. He's running out Ezekiel Turner for a ton of snaps. He's running out Ben Neiman for a ton of snaps. Just because it was working in division does not mean it's going to keep working, and it's definitely not going to keep working against a team like the Buffalo Bills. You had injuries you kept battling in this, and you were just ultimately, at the end of the day, outclassed. In this game, that happens. It's not a mark on the rest of your season. It's not saying you're Fugazi. In this game, you got outclassed. You got a chance to rebound, regroup, and do something different next time. And the Lions, near the end of that game, looked like they were starting to find their answers. They were starting to hold the Bills in a couple of spots, but by that point, it was too little, too late. They got punched in the mouth a few times early on, And they had some looks, especially at the end of each of these halves, to pull close to the Bills, but ultimately, mistakes harmed them. Missing the field goal by Jake Bates harmed them. Some of the decisions near the end of the game harmed them. But I'm not really talking about the onside kick. I actually do not mind the onside kick, because I think in that second half, which is going to be the story of this game, as we talk about Dan Campbell and his decisions, and you will hear this plenty through the week, will be about Dan Campbell's decision to onside kick it. Let me tell you why I didn't have a problem with the onside kick, because I saw what happened on the next drive. Ultimately, you are not going to stop the Buffalo Bills. And they like to do what the Lions like to do, which is possession ball. They want to sit on that ball. They won the time of possession 32 minutes to about 27 minutes. And near the end of that game, when the Lions decided to kick it, it had the onside kick. I didn't think it was a bad decision. It didn't matter if you were going to spot them around midfield or near their 20-yard line. They were still going to get down the field. The difference was in how fast it would go, and the difference was also you've got to give some props to the Buffalo Bills, because their special teams made one hell of a play to basically take it immediately into the red zone rather than midfield. And then on that next drive that ended in a field goal, they burned 6 minutes off the clock. And that's all the time you had left. That's really all the time you had left at the end of the day. So there's a lot to be said about this game. I don't think this really diminishes the Detroit Lions, but does kind of put a upper limit into how far you can go while your defense is this banged up. Obviously, you just can't play a lot of the Buffalo Bills. And obviously now your margin of error for the 1 seed in the NFC is gone. Last year, the 1 seed for the NFC was 12-5. This year at 12-2, the Detroit Lions now hold a tiebreaker over the Minnesota Vikings and the Philadelphia Eagles for that 1 seed. I believe that still holds true. Don't quote me on that. I'm just kind of sitting here being yes, it is true. And actually, I believe the Vikings still have to get their win to get up there. But either way, the Lions still hold the tiebreaker over them. So there's that. And there is no more room for error. The good news is there's not a lot of teams left that can really do what the Buffalo Bills do between the Bears, the 49ers, and the Vikings. You do have 2 road games coming up, and that Vikings game at the end of the year could very well be for all the marbles, not just the 1 seed, but maybe the division on the line as well. We will have to see coming up here when the Minnesota Vikings are playing on, I want to say, on Monday night against the Bears, who unfortunately the Bears haven't really been able to beat anyone. They didn't have a dead cap bounce. They had a dead cap particle accelerator. And man, that was bad. We'll see. I don't really feel like rooting for the Bears. Either way, again, I don't see the problem on the onside kick. I don't see the problem with a lot of this. I think the Lions got outclassed. They got outmatched. If I'm going to have a problem with anything the coaching did, it's going to be the time management near the end of the game. It's very uneasy to look at the Detroit Lions and see them they held timeouts after the end of this game. They still had timeouts when the clock hit triple zeros. And I know that in theory they wanted to save that for the next drive. But there was certainly a point near the end there as you're marching down the field to get this game to go back up to 48-42 that maybe you could have probably burned at least 1 or 2. So maybe if you would recover that onside kick, you would have certainly more time rather than just 12 seconds for a Hail Mary, which Jared Goff can't do because he just doesn't have the arm for that kind of Hail Mary. I don't know, man. Thankfully, the Bills recovered that onside kick, so it became very academic. But even if you had recovered it, you weren't really setting yourself up for a very good position to succeed. And if I'm going to be mad about Dan Campbell about what, and I'm going to be not mad, critiquing Dan Campbell on one thing over another, it would certainly be the time management near the end of this game than it would be the onside kick. And even then, man, the fact that you got back into this game just talks to the resilience of this team. It's a loss, and at the end of the day, that's the only thing that really matters because sports has that short menu of just wins and losses, and a moral victory doesn't count as any kind of victory in the standings, and that's the only thing that really matters at the end of the day. But I want Lions fans to understand what I told you at the start on how long of a streak this team has been on, how unprecedented it has been to have no losses in almost 3 months, and also appreciate that the Bills did everything you like to do and just did it better than you and did it more healthy than you. They ran the football. They got up to the second level with James Cook. Josh Allen could not just run the football and scored rushing touchdowns, but also could throw passing touchdowns as well, and really was just able to make the big plays happen. I think he's your most valuable player in the National Football League, right, if the season ended today. And I'm not just saying that because he kicked the Lions' asses. I think there's definitely a world where I think the Lions can beat Josh Allen, but you're not beating him with this cobbled-together defense with David Long and Ezekiel Turner and Ben Neiman. And it's not to take anything away from those guys. The Lions have battled valiantly over the past month with a bevy of injuries they have taken. They've done everything in their power to keep this ship steady. And it wasn't enough in this game. And that's sometimes that happens. Sometimes there's no grand takeaway that you can blame someone for this loss. Sometimes it's just a matter of, hey man, they were just a better team. They were in a better position, and they came into your house. They punched you in the face to start this game, and then it all kind of spiraled downhill from there. This is going to wrap up the podcast portion of our post-game show. We continue on live on Twitch and YouTube for Pride of Detroit. And again, for those at home, we have the PODcast coming on Monday, so join us on Twitch or YouTube, or check out the podcast when it goes live on Monday night and Tuesday morning. We'll see you Starside. Okay, that finished that recording, so now I can check in with chat, and I hope you guys in here. I'm not going to read anyone from YouTube because you guys are jackasses, and I don't have power over that either way. You blame me? That's fine. I'm trying to think what I did today that might have upset the football gods in that regard. I do have this bracelet I wear, this leather bracelet on I wear. Chat's always like this after a loss. This is usually a therapy session, but I usually have to ban people half the time. I do have to ask Jeremy for the keys to YouTube at some point, so I might just remove YouTube from the post-game chat just so I don't have to hear your bullshit. Especially since it always has other fans coming in to try to troll when this is a therapy session here for a lot of you. I won't be going too late either, just because I have been exhausted. I am on Blue Sky. What do you think this thing is right at the bottom? I am on Blue Sky. I'm talking about YouTube. And I usually like watching shit on YouTube. Excuse me. I got woken up like 3 times last night and had to wake up at 5 a.m. I know, we used to have some mods on here for that kind of stuff. But I guess I missed while I was doing the podcast That's also why I do the podcast portion at the start, because usually for me rambling on and ignoring the chat, usually the Vikings fans who really need to manage their own stuff usually end up like losing interest. No, this is the last time you're going to be in chat, Service Assassin, because I don't know who the fuck you are. Is Dan Campbell upsetting you? No, not really. I don't think Dan Campbell has actually cost the Lions any games. Dan Campbell hasn't. I know this is like this is a very fun talking point for national media because they have not. They've just not had someone to pick on when it comes to late game decisions lately. especially for fourth down. And I think even you could see it even in the aftermath of the victory on the Green Bay Packers. There were people trying to invoke Gambler and talk about this. I think Dan's decisions in this, again, I don't mind the onside kick decision. It's going to look risky, and people will lambast it. But again, I point to what was happening on that next drive where the Detroit Lions watched as the Buffalo Bills burned 6 minutes off the clock. I think that's another big part of it, Budget Jim, is that the onside the fact that you don't have to declare onside kick is it's really taken away even more from the onside kick, which I hate the change. I hate the change to onside kick. I understand why they have to declare it, but the problem is that onside kick just like I don't know what if you can't have surprise onside kicks, I think you need to revert the kicking rules entirely. Declaring it means that there's really no hope for you to really set up something to take advantage. Half the power of onside kick is surprise. Hey, I got to give it up to Jake Bates going after that ball. He was at the bottom of that pile, and let me tell you, any former player will tell you, the bottom of the pile is not a place you want to be. It's not the place you want to be, but Jake Bates went bravely into that fire. He went bravely into that fire to deal with that shit. I have not played Indiana Jones yet, Grant. I actually drove 2 hours back and forth to Orange County to pick up a new Ryzen 7 X3D CPU, and I need to install it this week. So, along with a new heatsink, so I can actually play it. I've had a CPU bottleneck, which has kind of kept me from keeping a lot of games playing. I've been playing a lot, mostly on my Switch right now, like usually some old strategy JRPG stuff. Yeah, I think I got to get in the new CPU before the tariffs kill it, right? The mild things, my sister just started watching football this year and saw her first onside kick scrum tonight, and she texted me that was yucky. Yeah, man. And I will say, like, again, I'm going to repeat what I said. You got to give it up to the Bills player who made a hell of a play on the onside kick, not just recovering it, but also taking it all the way into the red zone. If the Bills didn't have an MVP, this is an embarrassing blowout. Our defense trash. Well, they have the MVP. So I don't know what you want to do about this if and buts or whatever. They have the MVP. Josh Allen can do things no other quarterback can do. Can we talk about Skipper getting a touchdown? Thank you. I completely forgot about Dan Skipper's touchdown, which I really should have said something in the postgame for. And I'm too tired to go back and edit it now and add anything like that. But damn Skip. They've been trying for a good long time to make that man happen. And Skip was so damn slow, it almost didn't happen. I said that watching Skip get that touchdown is like watching a man in slow motion. He had to lower his boom to make that happen. I'm not watching the Dan stuff right now. I don't really feel like jumping over to it. However, we do have some updates on some injuries. Khalil Dorsey's season, not surprising, is over. It's that was bad. That was really bad what Khalil Dorsey suffered. Dan also sounds concerned about Carlton Davis and Aleem McNeil's chances of returning this season as well, which if that's the case, then this might really be kind of game over on the injuries at this point. You might have this a little bit derailed if you do not have someone like Aleem McNeil. Might be finally time to see more of Broderick Martin, I guess. Hope to see that. No, the season's not over. Stop saying that. You guys need to calm down a little bit. It's dicey, But there's 3 more games to play and playoff games. And you are going to start getting some reinforcements come the playoffs, especially Alex Anzalone. Now, and hopefully, I mean, you got Josh Paschal back. That helps. I think Za'Darius Smith still helps. You still need a lot more pressure. Josh Allen was kept very clean. And if I'm the Detroit Lions, I am looking into the future and saying that probably the big target, once again, is more pressure up the middle more pressure from the D-line because, damn, they are still really struggling with the pass rush. You might not hold on to the 1 seed at this point. Look, Jay Grass. No, I don't say never to nothing in the NFL. Nick Foles has a Super Bowl ring over Tom Brady and the Patriots. You can't chart this league out. You just can't. It really matters on who you're going to play. And while like you ran into a buzzsaw in the Buffalo Bills, there's still not a lot of teams, I think, that match up against the Detroit Lions, even with injuries in the NFC. Philadelphia might. Philadelphia might. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have already beaten you once. They are spicy. I don't know how to read. I don't have a read on the Seattle Seahawks. I don't really have a read on the Rams. I think both of them are vulnerable in places. The Commanders are definitely vulnerable. You've beaten the Vikings and the Packers, and in the case of the Packers, multiple times. There's still not many teams that can hang with the Detroit Lions, even in this state, in the NFC. This was a bit of a bounce-back day for Hurts. I was watching the Steelers and Eagles game, and while Hurts has definitely struggled to throw the ball, he did seem to get back on a better rhythm with A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith in this game. I believe his final stat line was, 25 of 32, 290 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So that's kind of bucking the can't throw the football trend that the Eagles have been on. I guess the question is, how many of those are you really going to have out of Jalen Hurts as the season comes down the line? But at this point, nobody's really stopping the Eagles. The Eagles have 3 division games to end this season: at Commanders, Cowboys, Giants. And let me tell you, they're probably going 2-3 in that, if not 3-3. 2 of 3, I should say, excuse me. They might win out. Can we get a milk sponsor for next year's Lions? I haven't worked on a milk sponsor. I've worked on a CBD. I've been working on a CBD sponsor. I don't know about a milk sponsor. Yeah, the other thing I want to say too about, because I know some people have been asking about this, the injuries are random. I'm sorry, they're random. And I don't think there is anything that you can really say as far, because I had some people asking me about I had someone asking me about like the strength and conditioning coaching and the training staff. That doesn't play a role at all in any of this. Carlton Davis being out for the rest of the year is a tough one. We don't have confirmation on that, but it does not sound hopeful. And he's been battling a few things. And it's a point where you're going to need Terry and Arnold to step up. And without Khalil Dorsey, it means you're probably in line with Kindle Vildor as well. I'm not sure what the issue is with Emmanuel Mosley. You do need him to play. You're probably going to have to see some Amik Robertson switching over to play outside of the nickel as well at some point too. Losing Davis is big, but I don't think that is as bad. There's ways around that right now. There's no way around the Aleem McNeil injury, though. You're going to have a lot of work set up for Broderick Martin, Onzarike, and DJ Reader. I don't know when Rakestraw can come back, but again, as two rookie corners is tough. I don't know if they want two rookie corners out there right now. Can Iffy help at all? I'm sure that is going... No, I mean, Melifon was on the IR again. Look, sometimes this happens. I think at this point, you're just going to have to see how far you go. And to be honest, with this offense, you can still, with this offense right now, you can still go pretty far in the playoffs. It does feel like a lot of pieces are flying off this car as it is coming down to the finish line. But, hey man, sometimes you just get dealt the cards you get dealt. I don't think a season's over. You just have to wait and see see what happens. This is what happens in big boy football. Sometimes some bad stuff happens. Doesn't mean the season can end tomorrow. It doesn't mean you just throw in the towel. Because let me tell you, at 12 wins, there ain't no fucking tanking for draft picks. You ain't getting in a better fucking position tanking for the draft picks. At 12-2, that's not how this league plays. You don't just quit up, and that would be a just massive disservice to the culture that Dan Campbell has been building here for anything. So, like, this whole idea that you're saying game over on that, like, what do you want them to do? The Lions are going to play at least 4 more games. I don't understand that kind of doom. I really don't. And it stinks of, it really does stink of SOL, and I refuse to do SOL because that's bad. That's stupid. I watch a lot of NFL football besides the Detroit Lions. And no other team really dooms like this. Fan base sometimes does. It gets annoying, really. It kind of gets really sad. It gets really annoying. There's dejected fan bases out there. There's spoiled fan bases out there. There's some that see curses in their histories. But never have I met a fan base like Detroit Lions fans who, at the first sign of something going bad, declares it all over. And to be honest, it gets really annoying with you guys sometimes. And that's me doing a little bit of therapy here. Eagles fans come close. Eagles fans, but here's the thing. Here's the difference, is that Eagles fans are unhappy where they are and direct it towards a particular rage. Oh, no, they still want to fire Sirianni. I was actually with a Eagles fan today who wants to see Jalen Hurts traded this offseason. But I think with an Eagles fans, it's always like they believe that the solution is right around the corner if you do this one weird trick. Lions fans who I talk with, you guys just kind of throw in the towel. And I want you to know something. That comes off as just being really spoiled to the rest of the NFL. We're talking about a team that rattled off 11 straight wins. We're talking about a team that hadn't lost in 3 months. And I have some people in our chat saying the season is over. So, like, what do you want me to do with that? What do you want me to do with that other than to call you fucking spoiled? You're fucking spoiled. You have one of the best teams in the league, even up into this game, and probably past this game, you've got people in the national media saying this is a Super Bowl contender. Now, I'm not talking about everyone, Joshua Mercer, but I do, like, here's the thing. I have to manage a Discord during these games. So I do get frustrated sometimes when I have to deal with people who are just, like, get unhinged. Can we really win a Super Bowl with a quarterback that can't scramble? Did we watch the same game, WR? Did we watch the same game? I saw Jared Goff scramble more than a couple times in this. He's not going to look like Josh Allen. Nobody's going to look like Josh Allen. Let me tell you something. Not even Patrick Mahomes is doing what Josh Allen is doing with his legs right now. Jared Goff has in his history gotten to a team to a Super Bowl. I think you stop making those complaints about what Jared Goff can and can't do. I had no problem with Goff in this, other than like, man, I don't want to see Jared Goff throwing the ball 59 times. And that's not a knock on Jared Goff, but really, no offense really survives when you have to throw the ball 59 times. The Lions are supposed to be the run game team in the NFL. They weren't doing it. You needed David Montgomery a lot more involved than he was. They were beat by the Bills because the Bills, like you, are a good run stuffing defense. O-line has struggled quite a bit in the pass protection in the last 6 games or so. I think that is true, Silent Guy. I think it has definitely been a bit of a downward trend on the O-line. Frank Ragnow kind of, again, I talked about some really weird penalties. Frank Ragnow, I believe, had a face mask penalty in this. I don't think Kevin Zeitler played very well. There is some age and lingering injuries that are probably contributing to this as well. Ultimately, at the end of the day, like, you're going to need different solutions. And I think those O-line problems has helped to stop a couple of offensive drives, but this team's identity is still offensive, and it needs to play well on offense to win games. And to be honest, I hate to keep leaving it at the feet of an offense who scored 42 points in this game, but their mistakes turned into the Bills' victory. If they had had just one more successful drive, we're probably looking at a very different game. And again, I feel bad saying that about an offense that scored 42 points when the defense let up 48, but also the offense is not made up of Ben Neiman, Ezekiel Turner, and David Long Jr. Amon-Ra St. Brown had himself a hell of a day. Sam Laporta had himself a hell of a day. You know? But I think their strategy overall wasn't good, because both losses now by the Detroit Lions have come when Jared Goff has to sit back and throw the ball 50 times. And again, make sure people hear me. I don't lay that at the feet of Jared Goff. I lay that at the feet of play calling, of trying to get this offense going. Some of Jared Goff does hold on to the ball a little bit long. There was definitely stuff that wasn't developing that Jared Goff was making some mistakes on. I did want them to run that, though. Like, that's the thing, is like, I do think that if you run them, the whole point of running the ball is beating them down. Just because you get put into a hole doesn't mean you can just abandon the run game and be okay. Because that's what the Lions do to other teams. They make them one-dimensional. And eventually, they start to make some mistakes. Monty was banged up per Dan Campbell. I'd have to watch the press conference and see something about that. But if that's the case, then, yeah, that's not good. Monty's kind of, I mean, the whole point of the run game is also controlling that clock. You kind of didn't control the clock at all. But again, Apex, like, what do you want a defense made up of third stringers and practice squad guys to do? Like, that looks exactly like I expect a defensive practice squad and third stringers to do. Exactly that. I can't fault a defense that has none of its starters. I just can't. I can't. I'm sorry, I can't. There's just, like, you're asking the impossible of guys who shouldn't even be suiting up on game day. to take on a team like the Lions were number 1 in a lot of different offensive statistics in the NFL. The Buffalo Bills were number 2 in the rest, in like almost all of those. The Bills were right behind the Lions coming into this game on stuff like third down conversions, fourth down conversions, run win success rate, things of that nature. Like the Bills were right on the heels of the Lions. Their offense was high powered, and you knew it. You weren't going to get a lot of stops off of that. All you could really do is hope to beat them in a foot race. And you started the game 3 and out on the first drive, and on the second drive, you took 2 sacks. That's kind of where we're at. I hate to say it. Everyone says the Lions offense has to pitch a perfect game. Well, they didn't pitch a very perfect game in this one. Imagine what this game looks like with a healthy Hutch. I mean, yeah, that's the if and buts on a lot of this stuff, right? And it's the unfortunate part of a lot of these injuries. It's kind of derailed probably the best season the Lions have had so far in their history. Oh boy, I'm tired. The rest of NFL was interesting, although I can't say I really cared for a lot of the 1 o'clock games. Jet-Jaguar game was funny. Commanders-Saints was funny. But there wasn't really a lot to be learned from a lot of the earlier slate. And I don't think there was much to be learned from the rest of the afternoon slate. Other than the Buccaneers are still very dangerous. They put up 40 points on the Chargers. And they got Bucky Irving back on the ground for 117 yards. We've been talking about it more than a few times. But the Buccaneers are going to be a hard out in the playoffs. They're going to be a very hard out. They're one of those, even at 8-6, they are a team that matches up very well against the Detroit Lions. And I think Baker Mayfield plays as well as any other quarterback in this league. Eagles, I didn't learn much about the Eagles. I do love watching Baker bake. I really do. Chris, I appreciate being around, talking to us through a tough loss. Look, I mean, if you're new to this a little bit, I don't know how long you've been with us, Legal RX Tender. I used to do this back in 2022, and this was always the therapy sessions for Lions fans. I just have not had the time to do it because usually I'm working until 6 p.m. Eastern. Oh, years. Okay. Then you may remember our therapy sessions. May not. I'm running on like 3 hours of sleep right now. Not by my own choice. A malfunctioning smoke alarm has done that to me. So if I'm a little short and testy sometimes, I apologize. I'm just kind of like, oh, I could really use some fun stuff to do. And I think I will probably take a siesta and maybe skip. I don't know. I'm going to watch some of Sunday Night Football, but also I'm kind of footballed out a little bit. There's theoretical limits you reach on just enough football. I've also been trying to pound the pavement on trying to get credentials for myself to go to the LA Bowl. A college football game, bowl game between UNLV and Cal Berkeley, and we're having the hell of a time. If any of you happen to know any of the people who run that bowl and or the ADs at Cal or UNLV, please let me know because I'd love to direct you to our people at Fox Sports Radio. Is it safe to say the injuries finally have caught up to us? I mean, they did in this game. Here's your big question. Will the injuries catch up to you in the next 3 games? Will the injuries cost you the 1 seed? Because there's only 3 games left, and it's 2 road games, and it's against the Bears and the 49ers. The Bears are the Bears. The 49ers, God bless their hearts, but without Christian McCaffrey, they're not the same team. And then it's the Vikings at home. And that game will mean a lot. That game will absolutely mean a lot. I don't know if this... The problem with your question is, I guess there's certain places where I could say the injuries catch up to the Lions, right? Because I think in the playoffs, absolutely, depending on who they play, the injuries can catch up. But this team, even with all the injuries, won 3 games in 11 days. And I'm trying to suss that out in my head, man. I really am. It's clearly, though, that your injuries are not going to be good enough to beat a team like the Buffalo Bills, who have now scored, like, what is this, close to 100 points in 2 games? Like, they are on fire right now. They hit that stride the Lions were kind of on middle of the season. They're clicking at just the right time. And let me tell you something. The Bills end the year with Patriots, Jets at Patriots. This was their toughest test left. They aced it. Yeah, I don't know what to make of the playoffs at this point. I really don't. I think you've gone from luck in the Super Bowl to you're going to need a little bit of luck and a hell of a good game plan on your side to win a couple NFC matchups. Especially if one of those matchups happens to be against Tampa Bay or Philadelphia. Ultimately, at the end of the day, you're 12-2. Yeah, you're 12-2 at the end of the day. I understand the angst. I understand the trepidation for what comes, but you've got 3 more weeks before the playoffs, and you've got a lot more to learn about this team before that. Like, you're probably going to have to look at who's going to step up in the place of Carlton Davis. You're probably going to look at who's going to be stepping up in the place of Aleem McNeil, which is a really tough ask to replace Aleem McNeil. You're going to be out of Khalil Dorsey, who Campbell said Dorsey suffered a very similar injury to Aiden Hutchinson. I'll take a few more questions. If you got any questions that aren't Lions related too, I'd love to take those too. I'm going to be trying to relax for the rest of the night. I am in kind of a bit of physical pain. Pat O'Connor looked great last week. Think he could fill that Aleem void. Well, I don't think anyone fills the Aleem void, to be quite honest. You're looking for a big guy who can really stuff up the run. I mean, that's kind of what you have with DJ Reader. I mean, Pat O'Connor, that's just tough. That's a lot to ask of Pat O'Connor, man. That's not really been his game for a long time either. I think Pat O'Connor's, they're going to try kicking Pat O'Connor inside, maybe. I would say now is the time. It's not a matter of you can't really be cute about Broderick Martin anymore. You have to play him. If he's not good enough to be on this team, then he's just not good enough. But he's got to play. You can't hide him forever. He's got to go out there, man. You don't have much choice left. You got to play Broderick Martin. Any trailers from the Game Awards excite you? I was a very big fan of Onimusha as a child. Seeing that come back and get the Resident Evil remake treatment makes me extremely excited. For those who never played the original Onimusha, it was basically a melee slaying demons as a samurai version of Resident Evil, which meant tank controls. It was jank as hell, and yet somehow I loved the game. It was mostly known for a lot of people just having a really bad English dub translation. That said, a new Onimusha could very much so be Capcom's version of a Souls-like, and I am here for it. I'm absolutely here for it. I also was not expecting a new Elden Ring game, and I am also here for it. Witcher 4 was just CGI cinematics, so I can't really speak to that. I like gameplay. And I'll be honest, I am going to play that weird Pac-Man Shadow Labyrinth game. Because I like Metroidvanias, and everyone's like, oh, you can't do edgy Pac-Man. Shut up. An entire generation embraced Shadow the Hedgehog. We can do whatever the fuck we want. All right? I love some old Pac-Man games. I had a Genesis game called Pac-Man 2: The New Adventures, where like you didn't actually control Pac-Man, you just kind of directed him on a screen as he walked and used a slingshot. You should look it up. It's an insane game. My point is that Pac-Man is probably the oddest franchise on earth. Wukong was robbed. I actually believe Belatro's my game of the year. I don't understand Astro Boy. Astro Boy was a fine, competent platformer, but I think it was trading on Sony nostalgia bait more than it was anything unique or interesting. I have not played The Long Dark. I'm interested in that stuff. I also have never played Slay the Spire, and I need to go back and play the first one so I can play Slay the Spire too. I'm trying to think what else came from the Game Awards. The biggest thing for me was actually seeing a trailer the next day for early access coming soon for a game called Divine Frequency. If you can find it on Steam, it's a GZ Doom game, and Divine Frequency was probably one of my favorite demos from the Next Fest. Thank you, by the way, Blazin 1 Buffalo 9. GG's from a Bills fan rooting for y'all in the NFC. Hey man, I've got no beef with the Bills. Like, if you want to talk about two teams that kind of have the same energy, the same dreams, and the same beliefs, and kind of the same part of the country, like, the Bills are the AFC team to really match up against the Detroit Lions. Like, I also worked with a couple of Bills fans in my time, so, yeah. I hate to do the GG Lions dudes guys thing that's very Reddit, but, I mean, I can't really hate this. As I said, I think Josh Allen's the MVP, and that's a team you're staring in the mirror at each other. The Bills were just healthier, had the right game plan to stop the Lions' run, and they have the MVP in Josh Allen. No, Nautic, I do not. Yeah, I love when we can have the Bills at Ford Field too. I love that. I love seeing when the weather is like, hey, I was on a Bills podcast before on yesterday, and I told them I always remember the Bills and the Lions would always play each other in preseason. I always like that because these are two fan bases that know very well the value of jumping over to Ontario to get beer when you're young. Nautic, Lions strength and conditioning coach on the hot seat. No, why would they be? And I know what your answer to my, and that's a rhetorical question. I know why people are going to blame the strength and conditioning coaches, but I really need to make people know and very clear. No, injuries are not the fault of strength and conditioning coaches. It's not the fault of the turf. It's not the fault of the training staff. It's not the fault of the medical staff. It's not the fault of anyone. I know we like to think that there's a reason for some of this, some way it can be fixed, but there is none. There is none. The Lions were very lucky last year avoiding injuries, and this year they're very unlucky at avoiding injuries. And that's it. That's what it is. It's luck. That's luck. I know there is something to that, like people keep saying that, hey, Brad Holmes, he kind of signs a lot of free agents who have had injuries before, and maybe that's something to it. But like I really do believe injuries are freak. Why is it just the defense? Because the defense is the one that has to play very hard and hits people going at full speed. Like you don't get a ton of, like, you are not getting hit every play if you are a wide receiver. You're not getting hit at every play if you're the running back, unless you get hit more because you're handling the ball a lot. But like when you're a defensive tackle, defensive end, your job is to rush at and get hit. When you are a linebacker, your job is to go make the tackle and get hit. O-lines and front seven. Those are the ones that get hit the most. Yeah, these aren't soft tissue injuries, though, I think, Elgato Diablo. I mean, I'd have to look at some of them. I know the Khalil Dorsey injury is very similar to what we had with Hutchinson. So, it's the nature of playing defense, I guess. Sorry, back to the video game stuff. Insane it beat Wukong. I liked Wukong a lot. I actually think Balatro was my game of the year. Wukong is important, I feel, in that it opened up a lot of people's eyes and probably is the best game we've had out of China that is not a out of Chinese developers that's not like a gachapon game or something. I think it took home, I believe, some action, an action game category. So, I mean, the Game Awards don't barely matter anyway, just because it is mostly Jeff Keighley there to try to sell you ads and products. It's fun, but I don't think I have any. I don't have any illusions about the actual. Yeah, that's what Gachapon is, JDen74. Trust me, as someone, I play gacha games. I've played Genshin Impact and Blue Archive and quite a few other games. And there are some other Chinese games that are worth your attention that are not those. There is a very old series. What's the name of it? It's called Legend of Sword and Fairy. But these are a lot of that is a long running series that's very important to the Chinese mainland as far as like, you know, that's their JRPG giant franchise, kind of like a Final Fantasy. The problem for a lot of those has always just been nobody really translates them very well. And it's very hard to get access to them, unlike Japanese games, which have had a good access to the Western market and has good developers and publishers that constantly bring them over. Wukong was really the first one to really put all of that together and was great. It looked great, presentable. It had great combat, and it nailed the translation for English. Metaphor ReFantazio rightly won RPG of the year. I have to play Metaphor. I'm not a big Persona fan. I do have to play Metaphor. It is crazy. They said Hutch is walking around at practice right now. We'll see. There's a lot of difference between that and, yeah. Why are you feeding the trolls? I don't think I'm feeding the trolls. I think I try to give people the time of day. I am a combative person, though. I am a combative person. Astro bought Game of the Year. I don't think they bought it, but, like, look, we already had a lot of scub going into the Game Awards because a DLC was one of the Game of the Year nominations in Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree, which I was totally fine with because Shadow of the Erdtree is long enough to be its own game. But it was something that I don't think they would do if it wasn't From Software. And trust me, I love From Software. They're my favorite developer out there. Just dropped $2K on an Alienware laptop to play a trucking simulator. I don't know why my wife married me. I think Aiden is right in line where he should be, maybe slightly ahead of schedule. Yeah, I still don't think he plays this year. It's just the unfortunate timing. I think if he had gotten hurt earlier in the season, Nicholas, he would probably be back, but yeah. Yeah. Oh, man, I'm really tired. And the worst part is like, I'm not even going to like be able to sleep. I'm just going to probably sit in my laptop in bed and read over old Dungeons and Dragons books, trying to write notes for myself on campaigns I want to run. Thoughts on the onside kick? I did not mind I don't mind going back to some of these we already talked about. And we'll talk about it again on Monday. I did not mind the decision to go for it. I thought that it was fine. My logic, and I saw a lot of other Lions writers saying this, is like, look, you haven't been able to stop Buffalo, and what's the difference starting them at the 20 or the 50? Maybe you have the chance to get it back. So I didn't mind the thought process. I didn't think it was executed very well, and I think that ultimately Buffalo just made one hell of a play on special teams, so that instead of starting around the 50, they started around the 10-yard line. And again, big reason I didn't care for it is I saw what happened on the next drive where the Bills held onto the ball for 6 minutes. Is the smoke detector fixed now? I don't know. I think it might be I don't know because I put in a new battery in it like 3 weeks ago. So it might just be malfunctioning at this point, in which case I have to get my landlord involved. But it hasn't gone off again all day, so we'll see what happens at night. It's been kind of foggy around here, so maybe it's screwing up with some of the stuff. I'm going to try to run a space heater and dry out my place a little bit. Yeah, I don't try to play doctor at all, I'll be honest. Yeah, it beeped 3 times. One was around midnight, and then it beeped twice within a minute around 4 a.m. and then stopped. So I think it's just something that's on the fritz. I mostly just wanted to stop, less for me, more for Ruby, because Ruby hates the damn thing. Ruby turns mean when he hears that smoke detector. Yeah, I don't think this game really matters. I hate to say it, but I don't think this game matters to the Lions. It really doesn't. You've got 2 wins over the Packers right now. This game literally does not matter to them. And ultimately, the Packers might end up helping you out. Because that week prior to playing the Lions play the Vikings have to play the Packers. I believe that's in Minnesota. So, Green Bay can certainly help out the Lions. I do have a couple series I do need to catch up on. I got a Netflix subscription because of the football games coming around Christmas. And I do have a couple anime to catch up on. Minnesota's going to Seattle next week, too. I'm wondering how I'm going to be... The only thing I'm curious about this game is actually more from Seattle's side than it is from Green Bay's side. Because I think Seattle really, if they can't win this game tonight, I think they're out of the playoffs. Wait, hold on. No. They're 8-5 right now. They wouldn't be out of the playoffs, but, they've got both the Rams and the Cardinals right on their heels. They really, much like the Lions, they really can't afford to lose too much ground. You really need the Seahawks to start playing better. I think that's ultimately, as much as I see Vikings fans prematurely celebrating or whatever, their end of the season ain't great. Cool, you got the Bears. We'll see what the Bears can do after a second week of this interim coach, but at Seahawks, Packers, at Lions. I don't know, man. That's pretty tough. Hey, Lantana. Hey. Oh, man. The genius that built our house put a smoke detector 10 feet away from the stove, so anytime I try to cool anything involving a hot sear or anything on high heat, it's beeping. Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm glad I don't have that. I actually have, I think, another dead... I have a second smoke detector, but I'm pretty sure it's unhooked or dead because it hasn't had a light on in years. It's the one smoke detector I have is right above my bed. So it wakes me up. Yeah, I think, I hate to say it, but because, I know, Daily Norseman's really been kind of what are you doing? They've been really mad at the Lions, and I don't understand it. I just don't. Rams also play Week 18 against the Seahawks. God, yeah, the Seahawks do not have an easy sled of it near the end of the year. Rams could honestly back end their way into the... That Rams win over the Bills might be the difference. Rams' schedule to end the year is also at Jets, Cardinals, Seahawks. Now, the problem for the Rams is they've had 3 good wins to start here, but, you go from the Bills game to not even scoring a touchdown on the 49ers. They are such an inconsistent mystery box team. I don't understand the Rams at all. I really don't. Of the last 4 games, this was the one to lose? Yeah, because it's a non-conference game. and it's up against one of the best teams out there. Like you still have tiebreakers that go in your favor over the Vikings and the Eagles. Anyone else thinks Tim Patrick gets a new deal and sticks around? I'll be curious to see if that happens. He's definitely having a bit of a resurgence. He is kind of at a bad. What is it? How old is Tim Patrick? Let me double check that real quick. Because I mean, really, what it's a Josh Reynolds role. Yeah, he's 31 right now. Like Tim Patrick's having one hell of a resurgence, and I love it. But I think if it's going to be a matter of a lot of money due to Tim Patrick, you might. I mean, we'll see. I'm curious what the Lions do in the draft if they decide to restock and look for another wide receiver. Although, to be honest, if I'm the Lions going into this draft, I should be targeting the O-line and interior defensive tackles. Or actually, anything on the D-line, really. Either in exterior or interior. Both are excellent. Both would be fantastic. This is going to be a trenches draft for the Lions. And I do like that guy out of Arizona. Savanaya, I want to say, is how I pronounce his name. I don't know how to pronounce it. Because I think you only have Kevin Zeitler on a 1-year deal, if I am not mistaken. And look, at some point you're going to need to eventually start thinking about what happens if Taylor Decker or Frank Ragnow eventually decides to either move on or hang it up or whatever you want to do. Like, the only irreplaceable part of your O-line right now is Penei Sewell. Mahogany takes Zeitler's spot next year. I mean, you've got to see if he develops, right? Like, this is kind of the Colby Sorsdahl problem. Like, I will say, these later day guys they've been drafting for the trenches, like, this is kind of the Broderick Martin problem all over again. Like, Sorsdahl was cool, but got to play him at some point. Mahogany's cool, but he's a late rounder. I don't know if he's going to really turn into that. Giovanni Manu. I mean, I know he's going to be a developmental project. He might never be what you want him to be, though. See some talk about waivers. Yeah, I don't know what's going on waivers. Yeah. Pay that man to try to get Trey Smith here. I should probably go over some alerts, shouldn't I? It's been quite a bit, and we should probably talk about it, right? I apologize. I didn't really do that. Super chat from Rias the Beast. $2. Glad this happened today and not the playoffs. Thank you. Lefty Detroit, 53 months. This was tough. That was tough, but never quit, and we are still in control of our own destiny. Hard Sticks, 3 months in a row, 18 total. Happy 2 Twitch babies. Honestly, if there's a game to lose, that's the one. Get punched in the mouth and reset. We will see them in February. Woodchuck Hunter, 28 months. If you take away from this game is anything other than the defensive attrition, finally caught up, just stop and think. 100 bits from Joshua Mercer. I think, sorry, Joshua, I hadn't gotten your questions here. Speaking of injuries, is Nick Chubb's career done? And is Jonathan Brooks' career done before it even starts? I can't speak on Brooks. Chubb's injury is, man, that's tough. It does feel like time's catching up to Nick Chubb. Time and usage. Let's see here. Joshua Mercer, 100 bits. What is SOL? Never heard of it. I think I read your other message here for the 100 bits. And then another 100 bits from Joshua Mercer. I don't see how anyone views this as a tough loss, though. To be completely honest, I've been waiting for this loss due to injuries on the defense for weeks now. Yeah. the UFOs over Jersey gave Josh Alien the favor today. For any news on Aleem, it's not definitive yet, Lantana, but it sounds very doubtful for the him to be playing the rest of the season, per Dan Campbell. We don't have an official designation yet. Probably won't until the start of the week. I will say I've really liked how Tarian has been playing the last couple of weeks. I think that was always going to happen, El Gato Diablo. I think people will just realize that rookie corners take time to adjust to the league. And I'm very, very happy he is. Cattle Snacks, Arcane on Netflix, Chris/chat, that will cheer you up. I'm not big on League of Legends stuff. I am watching something called Mononoke, which is actually a continuation of a OVA I had when I was younger called Ayakashi Ghost Stories. And I know there is a movie that just came out on there for Mononoke. And when I say Mononoke, I'm not talking about the Ghibli film Princess Mononoke. I'm talking about something very different. What's the last team to be devastated like this? To be honest, I'd have to go back and look, Jory. I really cannot tell you because I haven't kept up with that kind of stuff. I've watched all of Delicious in Dungeon. Delicious in Dungeon is one of my universal recommendations I give to people. Delicious in Dungeon is fantastic. I might go back and rewatch it. I've actually finished the manga. So the manga actually finished earlier this year. If you get the chance to read it, it's great. But I think that's why that makes me excited for the rest of the anime for Delicious in Dungeon, because the story's done. There will be a definitive end to the story of Delicious in Dungeon. So as long as Trigger keeps animating it, I'm going to keep watching it. Eagles 2017 or Packers 2010 were banged up. I believe that's correct, Beatty. That sounds about right, especially the Eagles in 2017. Tyrion got burned on one play by Kincaid, but generally I think it was front seven that dragged the D more. Your CBs aren't going to stop everything. He had some ball deflections. Like, he had some good stuff. Rakestraw return date, we don't really have one. But, all right. I think that's going to be the end of this stream. I appreciate you all talking with me, and I hope this was good for therapy for some of you. I'm going to go make a turkey sandwich, and I'm going to go lay down and watch some of this football and try to relax a little bit. This is my tomorrow's my last is a day off for me before the real Christmas workload really starts. So get some rest, everyone. Yes, as people are saying, we are back to FTB, fuck the Bears. Wasn't even that long ago and we were already doing it. I know this is tough. Keep everything in perspective. And we hope to see you tomorrow for the POD cast. Goodbye, everyone. Let's see. Should I send you somewhere? Is there anyone to send you? Why am I'm not... No, nowhere really to send you. So I'm just gonna shut down.